Hey everybody, and welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank. Today we only have an interview as we took the week off for some spring break, but I'm excited to share this guest with you. Today's guest is someone who's reshaping what modern superhero storytelling looks like. Kyle Higgins is the mastermind behind Radiant Black and the Massive-Verse as a whole at Image Comics. It's an interconnected world of superheroes that has exploded in popularity over the last few years. From Dead Lucky to Rogue Sun and of course Radiant Black, Kyle and his team are building a new universe that's not only ambitious, but deeply personal and reflective to the world that we live in today. In this episode, we dive into how the Massiverse came to be, what makes Radiant Black stand apart, and what's next as the series enters its rebuild era. Kyle also shares some behind-the-scenes insights on organizing an entire shared universe, his thoughts on adaptations, and what drives him to keep innovating in the comic book space. Let's get into it. This is my conversation with Kyle Higgins. I want to start off by saying you've accomplished something pretty special in the fact that we live in a world where like Marvel, DC, and even the like more bigger staples of Image, they breathe well. But for a new universe to be born and to succeed as yours has is pretty impressive. Can you kind of explain to us what the Massiverse is?
Sure. The Massiverse is a shared, interconnected superhero universe. It's a creator-owned universe at Image Comics. We publish, I don't know how many titles we've actually done off the cuff here.
I know you've got 4, and then you have the crossover with Supermassive.
Yeah. Right? Well, we'll go. I guess top down view first, 10,000 foot view. So it's a shared creator-owned superhero universe at Image. It's headlined by my book Radiant Black, which is a very contemporary superhero series about 2 disillusioned millennials navigating failed dreams and crippling credit card debt with the help of miniature black holes and existential giant robots. So relatable. It's all of the fun stuff of my generation anyway.
Yeah.
And we're back right now monthly. We've been going for 4 years, I want to say. We started, first issue came out in 2021. We took a little break in October of last year, from October until February, to get ahead on a bunch of stuff as we wrapped up our first big event called the Catalyst War. Now we're back. Issue 32 just came out. Issue 33 comes out next month. The cool thing about the line, which also includes Rogue Sun by one of my best friends, Ryan Parrott, and his co-creator, Abel. Cowl from myself, Alex Siegel, and Rod Reese. The Dead Lucky from Melissa Flores, French Carlomagno, Matteo Iannoccio, and Becca Carey. And Inferno Girl Red is our other really big one, from Matt Groom, Erica D'Urso, Igor Monti, and Becca Carey on letters again. The cool thing about this line and all those books is that you only have to read what you're interested in. So if you're only interested in slice of life, cosmic sci-fi mashups, Radiant Black's gonna be the book for you. If you dig the idea of a supernatural Batman Beyond with a crummy dead dad who haunts the suit, that's gonna be Rogue Sun. Yeah. Dead Lucky is a really cool cyberpunk LGBTQ series about a soldier who comes back from Afghanistan with PTSD and electrical abilities, and she can manifest the ghosts of her dead platoon. They take over mechas as they fight back against this like tech bro billionaire trying to privatize San Francisco. Inferno Girl Red is our like hope punk YA leaning series. It's like British boarding school drama and magical girl transforming tokusatsu action. Once a year, the characters cross over in a 50-page one-shot called Supermassive. If you've read the books, then that's the Supermassive is additive because it reflects where everyone is at, in their own story arcs and character arcs. But if you haven't read the books, you will learn everything you need to know in Supermassive in order to understand the story and who everyone is and what they want. And you'll get a full narrative experience from it.
So let me ask, as a fan, I got to know, do we have a release date on the audiobook yet?
No, we're still recording it. So okay. I was targeting May, but we're not going to hit May. The reality is like every single thing we do, and this has been the case for 4 years, we're a really, really small team. So everything we do has increasingly a higher opportunity cost to it than in years past. And it's just because we're so busy and juggling so much. And the priority is Radiant Black and Rogue Sun being on time and monthly. Like we had some delays last year because of the nature of the big Radiant Black story, which was very, very ambitious. And ended up being a double ship situation for every release. We were putting out 2 books at the same time with 2 different art teams and 2 different scripts and everything.
2 different universes.
And there was, what's it? It's 2 different, well, not well, timelines at least. Yeah.
Timelines. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
But our priority is getting the books. Well, the books are on time and monthly right now, but keeping them that way. So between that, the audiobook, writing the No One feature, and running a bunch of other things, a lot of which people don't actually even know about, we're getting to the extra material as we're able to here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm going to link in the description, guys, everything you need to follow up, but I will also be linking, Will and Ryder recorded a little trailer for the audiobook and just got everybody chomping at the bit. So you got to at least check that out. It's only like 90 seconds. Oh, it'll get you all hooked.
Oh, are you talking about for the audiobook, or are you talking about the recap?
It was, no, yeah, you're right. It was a recap, and then basically, yeah, I guess it was just the recap, but it got me excited to hear those 2 voicing those characters.
Well, they did record a teaser for the audiobook about a year ago when we announced it, which was a lot of fun. And so that video's out there as well. But yeah, I've recorded almost all of Ryder's stuff for volume 1. I've recorded Melissa Navia, who's playing Radiant Pink. She stars on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And Lauren Lester, who's voicing Nathan Burnett's father. Lauren is famously of Batman the Animated Series, Robin, and Nightwing. For the audio-only listeners, I'm pointing to a giant Nightwing poster behind me. We're recording with Will and Ryder for all their stuff together in the next week or so. But Will's been recording with us a whole bunch of other things that are a lot of fun. We've been doing like, we try to promote the books a bit differently as well. And so I'm a big fan of doing I'm a big fan of working on the platforms that people are actually engaging on,
Yeah.
And trying to find ways to create promos and content that works and is effective right now and is different. And I had the idea of kind of in the spirit of the 90s promos that we used to get like on Fox Kids for this week on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers or Batman the Animated Series. I thought in the spirit of that, it'd be a lot of fun to do some animated promos for every issue with Will voicing Radiant Black, like first person. And then Johnny Young Bosch does the same thing for us, voicing Rogue Sun. So actually, in addition to like 8 other time sensitive things I have to finish as soon as we wrap up here, one of them is finishing the promo for Radiant Black 33 that we're going to be dropping probably tomorrow.
One of the hardest working men in comic books, I'll tell you that much. That's a fact. So I was introduced to your universe through The Dead Lucky. I interviewed Melissa Flores, big fan of Dead Lucky. And then I was like, well, if you're going to read Dead Lucky, you got to catch up on Radiant Black. You just got to get, it's infectious.
Yeah.
You want to read it all. And yeah, Radiant Black, it reads so well, guys. I know it's been compared to Invincible. That doesn't hurt it. That's for dang sure. And it definitely has that vibe of kind of fun. You feel the millennial edge in there, and I love that. What was that spark for you that wanted to create Radiant Black, something different than everything you've seen before?
I don't know that I would even say it's necessarily different from anything you've seen before. I think that's actually part of its charm, is that there are a lot of elements and influences that we all recognize that hopefully we found a way to do in a new way, while still keeping the spirit of the things that we all grew up loving. The book is a product of a few things. It was the initial, the name and the iconography of the miniature black hole actually come out of a project that I was starting to play around with when I was leaving Power Rangers as like a big like live action digital series. It was very, very, very different than what Radiant Black became. And eventually it was started as potentially a live action digital series in the wake of a big Power Rangers digital series that we were talking about doing that didn't go forward after Hasbro bought the brand.
Yeah.
And so I just started playing around with the idea of like, well, what if I did something kind of, post dystopian, like, and kind of build something in the spirit of some of the coinless world stuff that I'd been thinking about for this live action series we were talking about. The coinless, for anyone who hasn't read Power Rangers or my Power Rangers run, the coinless is the world where Lord Draken, who's Tommy Oliver, chose to. It's a Tommy Oliver that chose to stay by Rita's side after the spell was broken. And he's the only Tommy Oliver in the multiverse who did that, who didn't turn good. And so he becomes this despot named Lord Draken and ends up conquering kind of that timeline. And there's like a rebellion, and there's, it's, I wouldn't say it's full dystopia or anything like that, but it's got those overtones. And so I was just thinking about like doing something in that kind of space of an original thing. And like I said, the story is very, very different. If you're interested or curious what it was, we actually published the pitch for it in the massive edition hardcover that we just put out of Radiant Black for the first 12 issues, book one. And then very quickly, though, it became clear to me, it's like, nobody's going to buy a digital. Who's buying a digital series? No one's going to like, and at the budget that this would need to pull off, like, this is not a good idea. So I started playing around with it instead for comics, and I was going to do it as like a 6-issue miniseries at Image. And then it was Eric Stevenson, who's the publisher of Image. I have a really great relationship with, and Eric asked me at one point in 2019, would I ever be interested in building an original superhero? And I said, well, yeah, I'd kill to do that, but I didn't think there'd be a market for it. And he's like, I think there could be. And especially if you, he's like, I don't want Batman and Superman analogs. Like, build something new, like something that feels right now. Think of it as optimistic sci-fi, if that's easier. And let any other creators you think who'd be a good fit for this know. And so Ryan Parrott was my first call. Matt Groom was my second. Matt was already working on Inferno Girl Red. I was the editor on it as well. We'd been trying to find an artist for a good 6 to 12 months by that point. And it just ended up making sense that we all do this as a little collective and as a line. But when Eric said, do something contemporary and right now, considering like my history with Power Rangers, my growing love of tokusatsu, and I had just started on Ultraman as well for Marvel. It felt like having a bit of a tokusatsu aesthetic influence and a narrative influence to some degree as well would make a lot of sense. And it was something I was really interested in. And so it felt like doing something that was really personal. The book's not about me, but there's a lot of me in the book. Doing something really personal that also allowed me to touch on kind of like a lot of my fears, a lot of the issues that, I'm turning 40 this year. Like my friends, my generation are going through, doing all that stuff through the lens of our like aesthetic lens of our childhood felt like a really interesting kind of contrast, especially when you consider like, I don't know how old you are, but the world is not exactly
turning 40 this year as well. Yeah. So I'm feeling
it ain't exactly what it was promised to be for us. Was it? Or is it?
Oh yeah. Absolutely not. I miss my 90s cartoons.
You and me both. Yeah. So that's really where it kind of comes from. And then from there, it became very quickly like, that old idea, it's like, well, I love the name and I love the iconography. And what if I did it straight? What if I did it right now, utilizing that name and iconography and then building out, the backstory and the world and the mythos to accommodate. And very quickly, it became like, I want this to be a really awesome contemporary superhero book, but I really also want this to be a superhero book that celebrates being a fan of superheroes. And so for me, that includes all the stuff we grew up with, the stuff in the early 2000s when the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films were coming out, when, the first X-Men films were coming out. Like, we had so much excitement about that stuff. And things felt kind of magical. There was marketing back then, like, even a few years after with the Cloverfield movies, where it was like immersive and ARG driven. And I just wanted to try to build something that put a little bit of magic back into the world in a way that was, spiritually influenced by the stuff that I loved growing up and the stuff that made me fall in love with not only this genre, but this medium in the first place.
You feel it when you're reading your books. There's this, like the millennial tone, but also you can feel the Power Rangers influence, and it's got a little sprinkle of like that animes in there and stuff like that, the bright colors, and each book, while still feeling very connected, do have their own vibe where you'll find what is best for you.
Mhm.
And when you're creating this Massiverse, how are you keeping that organized? The what is canon amongst these different books, these different heroes? And I know that you're trying to keep them separate so they're modular, but how are
Mhm.
you keeping track of all that?
So Michael Basudel, who edits and designs all the books, Michael and I are across all of the titles. So some titles I'm more involved with than others. I creative direct all of them. I think
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure I've cast the art team and the creative teams on every book. Um, and then I'm there to help where need be, and
Yeah.
but Michael runs schedules. He does all the design. Like he's the king of Excel spreadsheet documents, and so we run it like you'd run a real like a publishing line, a real universe,
Oh yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot of planning and coordinating, and what helps is that we're all friends, so there's no like
That's
huge
great.
ego problems or anything like that. Everyone's kind of in this together, and because the core creative team owns their own title on all the books, it means you're getting everyone's best because it's their equity,
Yeah.
or it's equity for them, I should say. And so that was really important to me as well. And yeah, it really is just a collaborative effort at every turn.
That's wonderful. Now let's return to Radiant Black
Sure.
specifically. We had the Catalyst War
Mhm.
that was this grand event, and then we had these two different timelines going on. How did you guys approach writing two different timelines like that?
Well, I guess the context for anyone who doesn't know without spoiling
Right.
30 plus issues of the book. Let me see if I can do this.
Fair.
The book, when I said before that it plays with tokusatsu, both aesthetic as well as narrative influences, the narrative influence is really kind of front and center here.
Hmm.
Um, the book is really kind of secretly a two-hander, and we spent the first 3 years of it, or no, first 2 years of the book, like building it that way. So the
Right.
book's about the friendship between these two best friends who are like oil and water to some extent, but also grew up together. So there's a bond there that like is never going to go away. And it's in some like the powers change between the two best friends of who's using them. You think one of the characters is going to be Radiant Black when the book starts, and the other guy is the friend. And then we have a huge twist in issue 4, and then the friend
Yep.
takes over for a solid year, 12 issues. And then the original comes back, and then it goes back and forth. That's the secondary rider kind of dynamic from Common Rider. You
Yeah.
think about the original Common Rider, the first season, and the main rider in real life like broke his femur, I believe, in a motorcycle accident filming. And so they brought in a new, a new actor, a new character taking over as Common Rider. But then when the original actor healed up, he came back and suddenly you had two on the show. And so it became, a feature rather than a bug that they narratively
Nice.
integrated into not only the show, but then kind of the future of Kamen Rider and Tokusatsu to some was never the same,
Yeah.
even though it was in its nascent days. And so I was still, figuring out what it was. Um, we play with that in Radiant Black. And at the end of issue 24, on the eve of the Catalyst War kicking off and the big machine empire coming to Earth to try to take back the miniature black holes, the Radiants, the characters Nathan and Marshall learn that the powers aren't working right anymore, and only one of them. It's because they're not designed to be synced with more than one person, and
Hmm.
so only one of them can be Radiant Black permanently going forward, and they have to decide. And so we left that choice up to fans to vote on.
Yeah.
And then, as a surprise, we actually published both endings without telling readers that there were two endings under the variant covers, and then announced that that's actually what the core of the Catalyst War is that it's an event told across timelines. And that for the next 6 releases, we were going to be continuing to explore both timelines concurrently with two different art teams and two different scripts as the timelines diverge increasingly like that. And then it all folds back together in the end. And the winner of the vote ultimately is the permanent Radiant Black, which is where we're at now. going forward to here. So how we juggled it or how we managed it, it was top 3 hardest stories I've ever done.
I can imagine.
Top 3.
Yeah.
But it's also a story that I know I could not have done any earlier in my career. Everything I've done to this point, including all the events, coming up in the bad office during the New 52, and then Power Rangers and Shattered Grid, even my Batman Beyond, those all really prepared me for doing something like this. And the key to it all was that I knew what the arcs were for the characters. I knew before we ever wrote issue 25, before Joe Clark and I wrote issue 25, I knew that the core of the Catalyst War was going to be about the idea of whether people can change or not. And with that as the North Star, it meant that no matter how complicated things got trying to keep track of, the A timeline and the B timeline and what happened in each book and playing off of each other, but they also have to be their own things. Because we knew the core of what Nathan was going to be going through and how his arc was going to resolve, and what Marshall was going to be going through and how his arc was going to resolve, even without the vote, which we knew the answer to at that point anyway. So we knew who was going to end up Radiant Black, which obviously helped tie up the ending very, very early on. Yeah. By knowing that and having that North Star, it meant that you're designing the story issue by issue, the challenges and the responses that the characters have. You're designing those in a way that you're never off course because you know what you're building towards. Whereas in the past, on some events that I've been a part of for reasons sometimes my own and other times very much out of my control, there have been events and stories where it's we're just, you don't know issue by issue sometimes where things are going. Shattered Grid wasn't like that or anything. Right. I'm talking more about there were DC. There's a lot of PTSD. Don't want to call out any specific names. My DC days. Yeah.
Gates of Gotham or something like that.
No. Well, but Gates of Gotham was good. No. They let me do whatever I want on Gates of Gotham. I did have that problem. I did have not that problem exactly, but there was a complexity to Gates of Gotham, both lore wise, but also narratively, that gave me trouble, but only because I was 24, 25. Yeah. And it was my first mini series that I was ever writing. Mm-hmm. And I was writing it concurrently with 3 other books, including another mini series, Supreme Power at Marvel. Deathstroke is an ongoing series at DC, and then they ultimately gave me Nightwing all at the same time. And I had never written more than a one-shot before. So I was figuring out how to do this, much less navigate the politics and the pressures of doing it on a big stage, but also in the shadow of what became the New 52 that was always looming. And Gates of Gotham was actually originally supposed to be 6 issues. That's why the plotting in issue 3 to 4 suddenly gets a bit simpler, where it's oh, we're heading into the 3rd act now. Whereas in issue 2, it feels there's going to be more burn. And it's because we thought we had a 6th issue. And then around the time of issue 2, editorial was oh yeah, hey, actually you got to wrap up with 5, and we're double shipping issue 4 and 5 in the same month because everything has to be done and out the door and printed before the New 52 kicks off in September. So there were their own, that book had its own pressures, but I'm super proud of it. Yeah. I love that book, even with any of its flaws. I love that book.
It's interesting to hear as a reader. I personally love New 52, and to me it was kind of a return to comic books for me in a lot of ways, but to hear the pressure from writers themselves, you don't think about it as a reader. And it's quite interesting to hear what you guys had to go through to get ready for that. I guess it's a shift in the entire world for you guys in a lot of ways. Pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I don't want to give any more spoilers for up to 31, guys. So 1 through 30. Make sure you guys read it. It is fascinating, really great storyline. Radiant Yellow all day. It's so good. So make sure you guys check that out. But with issue 31 that came out in February, we have 32 now. You guys are starting this new era, and What are some of your goals going forward in a broad spect?
I guess I have to kind of talk about who Radiant Black is now because that's integral to
Yeah.
the story. So it is Marshall. It is Marshall Ward. He didn't start as Radiant Black. He was the annoying small doses best friend who never left his hometown.
Oh yeah.
But Marshall is now our permanent Radiant Black. And when we kick off with the new era with issue 31, we call it our rebuild era, both because the book and the Massiverse are back on time, monthly, again, trying to build more consistency back up. But also because in world, this is a status quo that is coming directly out of the events of the Catalyst War and the ending of the Catalyst War, where I think like a third of Chicago is, I don't want to say it's not gone, but like it's heavily destroyed, heavily damaged, and there's a build back effort that is starting. But one of the things that I don't want to say bothers me in a lot of superhero comics, but it's something that I don't see explored very often is the aftermath of the big event and the status quo pre or like post event, but pre return to normalcy. And what I mean by that is like most books don't spend a lot of time in that status quo. So like I remember I spent a year plus reading No Man's Land in the 90s and loved it, right? And then right when it ended, literally the next month, the Batman issue that comes out, it's like Gotham's it's already been rebuilt like by LexCorp. And it's like, oh, we're just in the new status quo now. And it glosses past, and I understand why, because you have to have a narrative purpose to like stay in this case, a rebuild kind of era. But that's where we're staying. And because of what Marshall's going through and trying to figure out about himself, and the reaction that the world is having, both in person, but also across the internet, everything from conspiracy theory groups to, organized, weaponized militias that have a sense that some stuff went down during the Catalyst War involving another timeline, but they don't really know. All of that makes for this era and the rebuild incredibly challenging for Marshall as he is working to become the type of Radiant Black that the world is going to need. So that's where we're at right now. There's a ton of new villains coming up. There's a ton of new threats. There's been a proliferation of the 001 technology, which is the alien space weapon technology that charges by being near any of the radiants, the miniature black holes. And that technology comes from 001 and Accretion, which is the faction, the like kind of the warrior priests of Catalyst. Well, that technology has been reverse engineered now on Earth and it's proliferated out. So like people are able to build their own stuff. It's only going to get more dangerous for Marshall and Radiant Black post the Catalyst War here.
Want to bring it back real quick to the idea that Marshall is the Radiant Black now too. For those who are not reading or who haven't been introduced yet, the fact that we have Nathan and Marshall, one of them is kind of like that go-getter that left town and comes back because he hit some hard luck, and then Marshall's the guy that never left. And you're either one of those two characters and have a friend that's the other character. And I always really enjoy that about your story. So I love that Marshall's winning out at the end.
even on the creative team, it's funny how accurate that is. Like, I would say that like Marcelo and I are definitely more Nathans, and Joe, Clark, and Eduardo are definitely more Marshalls. Although at the same time, like that's more like I mean more like personality wise. And Joe is crazy successful in Chicago he's one of my best friends from high school. We grew up playing in jazz bands together and we've worked on projects together for at least 25 years at this point. So he's a composer, arranger, trumpet player, teacher, classical and jazz. He's written for Yo-Yo Ma, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Like,
oh my God.
He's got a whole other career, and it just so happens that he's also a dope comic book writer. So, it's immensely helpful and so much fun to be able to build this stuff with him now that he's joined. But it is. I think about that sometimes, how fortunate, or maybe that's just how the universe works, that like everyone kind of does end up getting put in that Nathan or Marshall bucket.
Yeah. I have friends in both buckets, I tell you. Looking at your other, you got Rogue Sun, Dead Lucky, and alike, how are they going to evolve alongside the new version or the new era of Radiant Black?
Well, the Dead Lucky we wrapped up last year for now at
Okay.
issue 12. So there's 2 volumes out now. And it's predominantly because Bibiana's mission for now is over.
hmm
She's still around. She was in Supermassive last year. You'll see her pop up in different ways, potentially, as well as some of the characters from the Dead Lucky book in the larger universe. You'll start to see them. Rogue Sun is monthly and ongoing, though. And Rogue Sun is entering its own rebuild era as well. So there's a new Rogue Sun. It's the half sister of our current Rogue Sun, Dylan.
Okay.
For anyone who doesn't know what Rogue Sun is, it's like, I said at the top, it's like a supernatural Batman Beyond with a crummy dead dad who wants the suit. But it's really about like if Flash Thompson got superpowers instead of Peter Parker, like Dylan Siegel, who becomes Rogue Sun, is when we meet him, he's a bully. He's not a nice guy at school, but the more you learn about him, the more you start to learn and realize in a lot of ways that he's a product of his environment and his upbringing. And his father, who he never knew, left when he was like 1 or 2 years old. And so his mom raised him. They didn't have much. Turns out that father who left is a superhero named Rogue Sun. And in issue 1, Dylan learns that he's dead. And he's left the mantle to Dylan. So Dylan starts as Rogue Sun in order to prove that he could do it better than his dad. And then very quickly discovers that every time he becomes Rogue Sun, he's haunted by the ghost of his dead father. And Dylan now needs to solve his dead father's murder while also learning how to become a better person and a superhero by way of while also like developing a relationship with this man that he's spent his whole life, A, not knowing, but B, hating. Well, the family that Dylan, or that Marcus, Dylan's father, the family that Marcus did care about is the one that he started after he left Dylan's mother. And that family is headlined by Juliet Bell, and her and Marcus's children, Ari and Brock. And really, Ari's the one that probably should have become Rogue Sun. Everyone thought in the family that's who Marcus would leave it to. And instead he left it to Dylan. Well, Ari now has a sunstone of her own, and she's a new Rogue Sun. And so while this book looks at and explores modern families and complicated relationships and being the child of divorce, we are pushing that further now as we're exploring what it's like with someone like, in this case, Ari, a half sister, and you have to develop a deeper relationship there with, a found family to some extent. And, she hasn't exactly been kind to Dylan up to this point. So how this is going to change Dylan's relationship, all on the precipice of the big villain Morningstar trying to invade, our world. And this is coming after Dylan threatened Morningstar. It's about to become a very dangerous time for anyone to be Rogue Sun.
Rogue Sun's one of the lesser ones that I've read so far. I haven't read that one fully through, but I gotta say that art in that book, the way just Rogue Sun and his dad look with the suit, the fire, like it's so freaking cool. Yes, this is so cool, guys. So, I mean, I know we keep referencing other books, but Ghost Rider, Flames, you got to get involved with that. And totally. I also like the fact that Dylan, he has it while he's like, oh man, my dad's haunting me until I saw the murder. There's also this idea that's like, nobody has that chance to build that relationship with their dad. And so you almost have to be appreciative of something that you hate, it's what a good story.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to really diving into that one a lot more. That's cool.
You'll have fun. Ryan writes and he's been joined by one of his best friends, Nick Cotton, co-writing with them. And they write a really mean superhero book. Mean in a good way, not mean like he's an asshole. He is a little bit of an asshole in the book at times, but I mean, they write a really awesome superhero book.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous too. And also Dead Lucky, guys. If you guys like, to me, it's that punk Spider-Man vibe. too. So you guys got to check that as well. One of the things I wanted to bring up while I've got you, you mentioned on another interview, everybody's always talking about like getting an adaptation of this, and you had been working a little bit on the live action one, and then there's the animation one. Which would you prefer if there was an adaptation for this for Radiant Black, animation or live action?
I think it ultimately depends on what the situation is more than the medium for me. Like we're not going to sell Radiant Black unless we're the ones doing the adaptation. And I don't care what medium that's in.
Yeah.
It just doesn't interest me. Like I come from a filmmaking background, I write and direct. I've been in LA for 20 years. Like there's a whole film, TV, etc. side of my life that, is one of my dreams, especially as a director. That's a long way of saying, it's not that long, but it's a way of saying that like I've been in plenty of situations and watched plenty of other situations play out over the years with creators and their own work. And, I haven't been willing to option or part with most of my creator own work over the years. There have been a few things that I've let go and optioned them. And, I've regretted a lot of them because it's just not the way. It's like playing the lottery, like, because it's not enough. And by the way, it's not enough anymore for it to just get made. Like it's got to be really, really good, because otherwise there's no point. There's so much amazing stuff out there in film, TV, animation, etc. We did have some offers on live action before the writer's strike. They weren't very good offers, if I'm being honest. So we chose to walk away from them. But they were for live action. We were building a take and a package to basically take a really big swing with like Apple and a few streamers. And the plan was really, really cool. Like the version of the show that I want to do live action is really, really cool. But realistically, no one's buying that show right now. And not for several years. The market is in a crazy, place. The industry is in a crazy place. So definitely interested in animation. Not to say that it's like a, it's like a runner up or something like that. I've always been in. I love animation. I've always been interested in it.
Right.
But for most of the time in the industry right now, it's far more challenging to do something in live action if you've already done animation. So like it's better to go the other way usually. Like if you've got a swing for live action, you do the live action first, and then in success maybe there's an animated whatever, right? But if you start with animation, it's got to be just ridiculously great and a huge hit to really open the possibility or doors for live action. And what makes it all more complicated is that the current platforms, Netflix, Amazon, etc., if you're going to Netflix with an animated thing, like a project, like Netflix wants all rights. They want the live action rights as well. Like Amazon too. Amazon wants to buy everything. The days of being able to parse out individual rights are kind of gone, unless there's like such a crazy bidding war situation that you could, leverage that level of interest into, carving out different rights for the property. But by and large, it's not really realistic right now. So instead, it becomes more about like, how do you, if you're talking about animation, how do you independently finance an animated show or an animated movie or whatever in a way that gives you, it's not even about necessarily the creative control, which is important, but it's like the business control, because then what you're doing is you're shopping kind of a finished show. It's expensive to make, of course, but it puts you in a position of better leverage as the creators, because now you're shopping a finished thing and it becomes more of a licensing deal as opposed to shopping, the idea of a project, in which case you're not going to be able to control all of the other rights that they're going to want to acquire. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And luckily, I mean, right now you guys have the video where We got Radiant Black fighting Blaze, which is kind of like a nice little proof of concept of what it could look like.
It would look different than that, though. It would look.
It
would definitely look different than Radiant Black versus Blaze in animation. Like it would be like, again, like the version that I see is like, it would look amazing. It would look super killer.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no. That's what I'm saying though, is like, so like you could use that as a proof of concept, but even, that now you're wanting to upgrade it even from there. And so you either have to put all that money up front and then get lucky with the distribution or something like that, or just trust somebody else. And right now there are so many good teams.
It's not about getting lucky with the distribution. It's about putting a package and a team together, as well as like the finished product in a way that it's kind of undeniable. Like
nice.
It's not about it. Yeah, it's not. Sorry, I'm trying to be. I'm tiptoeing a little bit here, but
I understand.
It's the market as it is right now. It's so hard to get anything made, and it's also incredibly hard. Animation, everyone's booked. Like it's hard. It takes a long time as well. So if you have something finished and you're walking it in right now, it does seem like the ability to sell a finished work is definitely viable. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Yeah. We'll have the audiobook coming up soon too, which will kind of give us a little bit of a feel for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Other version of the narrative, which I'm so excited for. I want to tell everybody who's listening, guys, make sure you guys go to your local comic book shop. Make sure you shop local if you can, and add this to your pool if it's not already there. I can't suggest it enough. It's such a fun story. I get a lot of it on the Kindle, but it's always nice to go by the shop and grab something. Kyle, I really appreciate you joining me today. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. And guys, also, I want to throw this out there. I'm going to have all the links in the description. Follow Kyle, follow a lot of the team on social media. They are busting their butt at all these conventions. So you could be meeting Kyle at a booth somewhere.
Yeah, sure. We'll be at we just did Emerald City and WonderCon. Ryan Parrott and I will be at C2E2 next week. And I'm about to announce it probably tomorrow. One of the things I have to finish today is a new newsletter. But we're going to be doing a big Massive-Verse meetup in Chicago on Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Near McCormick Place. There's a really cool bar restaurant called the Staley. It used to be Kroll's on 18th in Michigan. So we'll be doing our Massive-Verse meetup there. It's walking distance from McCormick. It's going to be a fun day, because earlier in the day on Saturday, we also have the Massive-Verse panel. Well, it's actually, I think the title is Kyle Higgins presents Radiant Black, the Massiverse, and more. Emphasis on the and more. So if you're in Chicago, if you're at C2E2, 2:45 to 3:15 on Saturday, April 12th, I believe is let me check the date. Saturday, April 12th. You're definitely going to want to come find us.
Okay.
And then come celebrate with us that night.
That is awesome. Oh, man. It's an exciting fandom to be a part of, and I hope people join if you're not already in. I know a lot of you already are. A lot of my friends are already into it, so I know this is going to be excellent taste. Just exciting. Yes, they do. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. All the links in the description. Start clicking around and follow up on that, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you very much.